I need to close the window, I think. It's a battle between the fumes of this office, so my health and my survival, and the sound of the airplane noises outside. God, man. So, yeah, you don't see, but there's no ceiling above me. So if stuff starts dropping on my head whilst we're recording. How are you?
Yeah, good. I was hoping you would explain your recording circumstances.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you.
Yeah, so I happen to have a room which has quite some piping. The studio has some piping above. There's starting to be a leak, and we had to start repairing, and it's been a month and a half, and it's not done yet, and the ceiling... No, it's not true. Yesterday, the piping has been finally resolved, but they had to rip off the entire ceiling. So you know how it is, like it's super dusty, so I had to remove everything from the studio. There was no studio, I had no office. It was like plan A, it doesn't work. Plan B, plan C, plan E. They kept having to change what they wanted to do, because the more they were opening the ceiling, the more they were discovering that stuff they hoping to do, they couldn't do. I think it's fixed.
The joys of home ownership.
Yeah, so now I should have next week a decorator and a team coming in to actually refit the entire ceiling and stop living. I mean, you cannot, I've just put back the studio for this recording, so just the bare bones of it last night. It's 9 a.m. and I can see dust over all the equipment, these kind of dusty things, because again, there's no protection. And by the way, I'm sure it's very echoey.
No, it sounds great.
Because of course there's no everything is bare bones. So anyway, it is what it is. So that's why we didn't record, Alex.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a break.
Yeah, but we saw each other.
We did. I was saying to Megan, it was our every 5 years we see each other.
That was amazing, man. It was she's amazing. She's really cool.
That's kind.
It's not kind. There was a fantastic evening we had. So that made up, guys. I'm sorry. We're sorry. That made up for our podcast, but simply that you were not able to.
We didn't record it.
Because we talked about travel, obviously.
We did, yeah.
We did. You, all good in the past, 8 weeks? I don't know, 6 weeks haven't we recorded?
Has it been 6 weeks?
Maybe more, actually.
Wow.
So I haven't traveled. I'll get to that in a bit, but I haven't traveled. You have, and quite a bit, actually. So since there's a backlog of Alex travels, we're just going to record today and see how many of them we can cover. And when we reach the usual 2-hour mark, we'll be stopping and recording another one in a couple of weeks, maybe, or something, to continue the journey of Alex, jetting off around the world or something. Yeah. So, yeah, before we do... Oh, yeah, the music before we do. Gan, that's for you. Here. So, you know the other thing that changed since last time we met? It's finally daylight savings, so summertime, and for me, that changes everything.
It does, yeah, same. What a difference it makes.
I mean, yeah, right? I always wanted that we all keep just that time. Daylight saving, whatever the term is. Please keep that forever, even during the winter. I don't really care if it's sunny in the morning. I really love that it's sunny in the evening.
Yeah, we've had a lousy, dark, wet winter, now spring. I mean, it's almost May, and the weather is lousy. It's just awful. So that is a welcome break in this mundanity.
I was actually telling a friend that, and I should say, we're recording today the 27th of April, 2023. I was telling a friend of mine a few days ago, he was reminiscing, maybe reminiscing is not the right word, how, 3 years ago, basically we were all in lockdown and, in our gardens, and if you were living on a street in London or the UK, at least, there were a lot of attempts to, kind of see each other with social distancing. So you would say hello, waving to each other. And I said, yeah, you know what? It feels like science fiction, the social distancing and the weather.
Yeah.
Because we don't have that kind of weather right now.
The weather was, I think, what got most of us through, at least in this country. We had that glorious spring. Felt like summer. It was the only thing. It was the only thing in that period that was even remotely joyful.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why that was science fiction. Talking about the daylight saving. The one country that we both know that was having this is related to aviation, that was having a bizarre time. I mean, it's having a very tough time otherwise since then, and even worse in the past few days, is Lebanon. So Lebanon, first of all, the weird thing about this summertime, let's call it summertime, is that the US and Europe, which for us as both markets we deal with, are not synced. So there's this weird period where,
this month
you have to
I've screwed up so many conference calls.
Is it 5 hours, 6 hours?
Yeah, and then you have, not only that, you have some states that don't do daylight savings time. So they don't change, and the rest of the country, it's just so stupid. The whole thing's stupid.
So Lebanon, like a day or two before, so they move, I think, in sync with Europe. A day or two before, and we know there's almost like no government. There is one, but I mean, let's not get there. It's a big mess, and I'm sorry for all our friends still living there, because a lot of them have left to Dubai, especially. The government decided to not go for to delay basically the introduction of that summertime because it was Ramadan, and they say it would be easier for people actually fasting to have because the fasting is linked with the sun. So if the sun comes down earlier in a way, the only thing is I don't have any judgment about that. It's the fact that they decided that like a day before the actual introduction of the time, which meant. So, for instance, Apple products were in sync. I think I don't know which one was it, but Apple products were in sync with the decision government, and Google products were not, or the opposite. Which meant, like, depending if you had like maybe a Samsung or an iPhone, you were not on the same time. You know how they automatically do that. But the crazy thing is that the airport didn't know what to do. So the airport started actually displaying, the Beirut airport started displaying 2 times. So, Alex, you would leave let's say to London from Beirut at 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. And so the actual signs on the boards were displaying 2 times just in case nobody knew. And then you were like, but the 4 p.m. that I'm being quoted, is that the 4 that is 5? Is that the 4 that is 3? Yeah. So people were going like 5 hours before to the airport.
I love that country, but that is the most perfect Arrested Development type shenanigans that the country has become famous for.
Yeah. And the sad bit is that we always had a laugh about it. And in the past 4 or 5 years, it's become, I mean, the inflation is like at 500%. I mean, it's really not fun at all. Saying that, I was not planning to talk about it. I read that the other day, saying that they have no money anymore. The coffers are empty. I mean, the currency has been completely devaluated. I mean, it's a really bad story. And if you remember downtown and other parts of Beirut that we visited together, like lots of shops have closed. They're like it's ghost town and everything because it's impossible. They don't even quote prices in supermarkets because by the evening, the price might have changed from the morning and stuff like that. Anyway. They're still building a new part of the terminal. They just announced it. I don't know. So, which is good because we talk about airports and we love airports. So where the old car goes on the east side, not the side that is closer to the city, the other side, they're building an extra set of gates, a new concourse, which is cool. And it looks nice and it's going to be done, I think it's going to be run even by Irish, like this one of these Irish companies that, helps run these airports around the world, whatever. So it seems like a good project. I just don't know where the money is.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah, so good for them. I mean, good for them. A few before we go to your trips, and I think we'll start with one that I think we've been a bit hinting at, which was New York. Before we go, a few feedbacks from our previous episode, 126 to Madrid. First, I want to apologize, even though I don't know her. I kept saying that, that FT article about...
Madrid.
Yeah, I kept calling her Joe Elliott. She's called Joe Ellison. I don't know why I said Elliott 3 times. So in case she heard it, or in case anyone from the FT heard, I don't know. I'm sorry. Anyway... You pointed that to me. There was a thread on Reddit where people were asking about their favorite podcast on our aviation. And yeah, I mean, because we never actually we did that at the very beginning. We really say thanks. There was Royal Swazi that said, my personal favorite is layovers. The main focus is on passenger experience and service product news. And they typically also talk about places they've been recently. Been a loyal listener for years. Note, it is quite long, around 2 hours.
Well, yes, it is long.
We had Craig on Camera Crew Craig on Instagram. Sent us a DM, a message. Hey guys, love the podcast. I'll leave a proper review very soon. You keep me company on my long drives around the country. And he wanted, and that's why I mentioned this DM, he said, you mentioned a flight app for info delays, and I was wondering, but it was. Many people asked us since the last episode. Many people asked us, you replied to one, Flighty. Should we spell it out?
Yeah, because it's a weird one. It's flight with a Y on the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. Flighty, so flight Y, exactly. And I think the website is flighty.app.
Yeah.
It's only on iOS for the moment. There's a web version now. So, no, I think it's a Mac OS version as well. So you can, it's very nicely done. So it syncs everything. It's very nicely done. You can also have it on your Mac. I don't know about Windows. I think they were hoping to do something on Android, but anyway, it's a very cool app. It's paid. You have like some features, you can use it without paying. If you want the full access to features, you have to pay, but it is my go-to.
Yeah, it is. It's mine now too, because of you, and I can't live without it. It's just the best companion for flight stuff, and I mean it's not flawless, and it every now and then it just forgets a piece of information or whatever, but 99% of the time, it's so far ahead of airport and airline app announcements of gates and delays and all of that stuff. And even the little things like taxi times and all of that.
It's beautifully done as well. It's beautifully designed.
It's beautiful, and it looks at your historical data too and presents it in a lovely interactive way. So it's worth every penny, and I'm stingy when it comes to paying for apps.
Yeah, and it's really also made for av geeks, because so not only you will have, so for pure travel planning, you'll have Where's My Plane? You know that in the US, the apps of airlines have done it for a while. In Europe, it still doesn't exist. I think Michael Leppa mentioned to me that SAS now does that, so you can know where your plane is. So if the plane is inbound, is late, you know that you're gonna be delayed, for instance. So Flighty attempts. They cannot always do it because the airline doesn't always have the information, but they attempt. Even if the airline doesn't provide that information, they attempt to say, "Oh, we know where your aircraft is." So that's very useful.
Yeah.
So that's a useful part, but also there's the geeky part, like you will have for memory afterwards, you will have the tail number of your flight, you will have the actual times, like you said, of, departure, taxi time, the actual time in the air. And how, and other apps do that, when you have the nice layout of from city to city, it will be the actual flight path.
Yeah.
It will not be just like a virtual line from, let's say, London to New York. You will see a little bit of the bumps and the left rights. They had to do the little diversion. So it's and that stays in the memory. That's only, I think, for flights that you've done whilst having the app. I don't think it can actually get
back.
the information, because it will sync with TripIt, for instance, so you can add your previous flight manually. But that obviously then, I don't think it can look up for the flight path, the exact flight path of a flight 10 years ago. But that's really nice for av geeks as well. That's
it
what I'm
is.
trying
And
to say.
speaking of TripIt, you can also do what you can do with TripIt, and you can forward the app your confirmation emails, and it will put everything in there for you.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So we highly recommend it. There's no hotel. It's really purely flying.
And that's fine.
But as I I had an exchange with a friend of mine, JD, John Bradford, about that. He was asking like, "Oh, TripIt is becoming so slow. It seems that they have abandoned kind of the development of it." Any recommendation? I asked that on Twitter, and I said Flighty, but I said, for me, the only time I need live updated information is flying, because the hotel, once I land wherever, I don't need 5 information to tell me that the hotel is late or something.
Yeah, well, that's true. It's static. It's much more static.
Yeah, so it's but I understand. Some people want travel planning. If you want a full travel planning besides TripIt, maybe Kayak is they offer a free thing that works quite well actually. Anyway, if you guys have any, by the way, any other app that we don't know about, just let us know on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever. We'd be happy to talk about them. And the same. He just told you about that direct message. Camera crew Craig from the UK then made good on his promise to actually leave a review and left us a review 5 stars. He says, my favorite travel podcast, a better late than never review, long-time listener. I save up your great podcast for my long car journeys around the UK for work. Love hearing about not just destinations, but the flights as well, being an AV geek. Plus, being an Avios chaser, I enjoy the status and loyalty chat. We don't do that a lot, but we do a little bit. I have also just started to watch AirAsia Travel on YouTube. Fantastic videos and amazing quality. Keep up the great work, both, and I am waiting for the next episode, Craig. And I must repeat his name because he does cool pictures, if you like aviation, because he does aviation photography. So it's Camera Crew Craig, at Camera Crew Craig on Instagram if you want to follow him. And I think he has also a website which should be linked from Instagram. So yeah, thank you, Craig. Very much appreciated.
Yeah.
And you see, good words for you AirAsia videos. The Brooklyn one was really nice. I really
thank you.
It. No, I really enjoyed it. I mean, Brooklyn there's a fabric there. There's something.
Very photogenic. Very photogenic.
Right. I didn't have to say bless you. You press on the cough button this time.
Did I not do it?
No, you did. No, you did. That's what I'm saying. I saw Alex going into I was like, oh, and then he was completely muted.
I've got a tickle. It's annoying as hell. Cough buttons are very useful.
The Urbanisto. I think that was, I'm sorry guys, because I took notes in the dust of this office last night. The Urbanisto said, found your podcast and been a hooked listener. He was on a flight from Atlanta to LaGuardia, and the pursuer just handed to him a handwritten note from Delta where they thank him for flying.
Wow.
And he says, it's functionally meaningless other than being a really nice gesture of recognition that you guys always talk about with regard to various carriers, soft product platforms. The other folks in the aisle with me that got those cards as well were similarly taken aback by the gesture. It just works.
It does.
Right?
It's such a small thing. But here he is telling us about it.
Right. I mean, I don't know how often it has happened to you over your years. A lot?
A handwritten note?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because while you were telling that story, I was thinking, has that ever happened to me? I mean, when Megan and I flew back on BA, when she was moving over here, we got that lovely card signed by the whole crew.
You mentioned.
And a bottle of champagne and stuff. But the only other time I can think about that is when I flew first on Cathay. And you kind of expect it. I can't. I mean, I've had other little things that were printed messages but signed by the crew.
Yeah.
JetBlue used to do that.
Yeah, JetBlue does that. JetBlue has done, when I went to New York, they had this. I don't know if it's because it was the introduction of the route. Otherwise, a few times, I mean, but the few times is that I remember them. There's a flight, now I don't remember which date because that was the time I was traveling so much, but I remember Singapore Airlines, the crew of the part of my cabin in business class in the 380. I don't know, they took a liking of me. It was nothing. They just they took a note, and the 4 of them, can't remember. I still have it somewhere in a box. They wrote down that I was a very cool passenger. They enjoyed the time with me, and they just signed. They didn't even ask. They didn't ask for leave us a review or anything. Right? It was just and I still remember that because I was like, oh wow, that's so. You didn't have to do that. And the Urbanisto here, I think probably on Instagram says, it's meaningless other than being a really nice gesture. He puts it very well.
Yeah. I believe it's a differentiator.
I agree. Frank Losel on Instagram as well. Twitter. Pretty much his Twitter, actually. At Frank Losel long message. He says he's a big fan of layovers. It's the first time he's writing to us. Then he says, if the time schedule of you and Alex ever allows it again, please get back to recording episodes once a week like in the beginning. On top of that, keep the length of the latest episodes or even extend them. So basically, he wants us to record once a week for 3 hours.
What the hell would we talk about?
He adds, I have just restarted listening to all of your episodes for the third time.
What?
That's dedication. That's dedication.
Like from the beginning? Like from episode...
well, apparently that's what he says, yeah. I mean, Frank, first of all, our early episodes were really different. We were not as good as we are today. Not that we are great today, but at least now we don't even pretend to be good. At the beginning, we were pretending to be pros.
Right.
It's
That's always the way, isn't it? We wish we could record more. I had this incident in my studio that will hopefully be done by next week. I will be back to I'm putting my life in danger right now by inhaling fumes while I'm talking to Alex because I love Alex so much. Yes, and but yeah, we have a little bit more time, but we don't have that much time. We were in a good streak, however, before that incident of my office. So we'll try to do this, and this is what we do, like 2 hours. So we do like 2 hours every 3-4 weeks. Yeah.
So you can have.
I can't imagine.
You can do like. Sorry, go ahead.
I just can't imagine that. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to hear actually from people that my hunch is that people don't listen from beginning to end in one sitting, all 2 hours. Like they pick up and put down and pick up and when I'm listening to podcasts, it's usually when I'm driving or running, and so there's finite chunks, and I get out of the car, it stops, and I get back in the car and it starts up again. But maybe I'm wrong.
I do that because I listen to kind of long form podcasts anyway. When these are my kind of favorite, deep conversations. Not that our conversations is very deep.
No.
But I do like you, so I would just randomly stop, like after I come back from the gym, and like stop, and then the next day or whenever I have like you said, like you have a commute, I will put it back on. So for me, the length never. But I know that some people are completists and probably want to listen to the entire thing in one go. I don't know. Anyway. And then he adds, and that's interesting because I wanted to have your views on that, Alex. It's still Frank Losel on Twitter, that he's flying with his wife to Japan in the coming weekend. So probably he's actually this coming weekend now. He will do Nuremberg, Munich, Heathrow, Haneda in business class, and he will experience ANA for the first time. I'm even pretty sure that's a new ANA, the room or whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah.
He's very excited. So the only thing I'm saying here, Frank, you really want to come to London to actually do a transit via Heathrow. I hope it's just to fly ANA, because why would you come to London? Why would you take to the pain of transiting in London just to go to Japan?
I was thinking about that routing too. I'm sure there's a reason. There might be a fare thing. We've both observed that fares through Heathrow that originate in a third country can often be cheaper. But that better be a significant discount, man.
Or, and I would get it, that ANA new seat, because he didn't mention that, but I know that's a new seat of ANA. Maybe it's still on very few routes, I think 777. And London has it. So maybe he told his wife, that's the best fare. And actually, that's for the seat. Frank, we won't tell your wife if that's the case. Don't worry. And he was asking us, so he's transit, at least because clearly he's flying Lufthansa, Nuremberg, Munich, Heathrow, because he's transiting at Terminal 2. So he stays within Terminal 2.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, at least there's that. And he's asking me, because I've been Star Alliance Gold until, you remember, February. And he's a gold member in Star Alliance. Can you recommend one of the several Star Alliance lounges available? I mean, I know which one I've already recommended on Twitter. Which one would you recommend, even though you flew less at T2A? T2B, both?
I went into the United Lounge once.
That's the best.
Which, when we flew on ANA, when we were working with them on Attaché, and I was impressed. I was really impressed. I liked it not because of it was comfortable and great, but also it was super aviation heritage.
Yes.
With not just the art, but also the little decorative touches as well in there. So I like that lounge. And it's right. I think it's literally opposite the gate that ANA often uses.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but they kept changing because I thought so. Frank, this is the opposite. Alex just said the opposite. I just told you on Twitter, so I apologize.
Oh well, it's been a long time. So
me too, because that's pre-COVID when I flew ANA.
Yeah,
so it's for me. I remember that Singapore KrisFlyer lounge is close. Anyway, it's like a 7-minute walk. We're talking here, between the two lounges. But I would say number one is United at T2B. Number two is Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer lounge, also at T2B, which is on the other set of gates at the B gates. These are the two best ones, but United by far the best. Air Canada is okay. Also at T2B. You don't want to walk back to because that's a long walk under the tunnel. The lounges at like the Lufthansa lounges is a Lufthansa, and I told him because you're Star Alliance Gold, it's a lounge you've seen a billion times. It's a good lounge at Heathrow, but it's the exact same lounge you would expect from Lufthansa in every airport in the world. Good, but maybe not United. And Paul is recommending United.
Yeah.
What's happening?
It is a good lounge, or it was 5 years ago. Jesus.
And he finally adds, and then I'll move on from his message, Frank. He finally adds, are there any other must-dos at T2 Heathrow? And I was like, I don't think there's any must-do at Heathrow in general, because there's not like a viewing platform or...
I think so. I think the only thing, at T2?
Yeah, because that's where he's transiting.
No.
Because what else would you recommend overall at Heathrow? Is there like one thing that, because you go to Singapore, of course Singapore is an exception, but you have like the garden and you have there's always at Heathrow it's a functional airport.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna stop doing all the pros and cons because I think we've been doing that since the start of the year, but
I can't think of,
is there like a thing that you would go as an Afghan special? I don't know.
the Cathay Lounge is the only thing I can think of that is magnetic.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're right. It's a functional airport. There's nothing.
There's some good food at T2. I gave him some names, but
There is good food. You're right.
I don't know. I mean, he has also. I told him he has 3 hours. I would spend them in the lounge.
Totally. Me too.
And I would actually save up my appetite for the ANA flight because that's
also
great.
Me too.
Right? Since we're talking about lounges, I'm going to ask you a question. Why do you go to lounges? What's your primary reason why you do go to lounges, Alex?
That's a great question. I think it's mainly the promise of a little bit of quiet away from the hustle and bustle.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then I think the second part is free food and drink. But it's, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I know that I'm missing the point of this question, but...
It's not a trick question. Don't worry, it's not a trick question.
So often lately, I would have rather paid $8 to $15 for a meal out in the airport, because there's a lot of these airports are getting much, much, much better food options.
True.
Than the crap that they give you for free in a lot of the lounges. Like we've talked about Cathay and Emirates and some of the outlier lounges where the food is exquisite, but often I'm sitting there with a 3-day-old sandwich and going, I feel like it would have been okay to spend $10 on a sandwich.
If they even have sandwiches, some of them is like crisps. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll take some chips and that's it. It's not like I'm like you. And even sometimes you say the quiet, which we've been lucky also to sometimes have access, like you just said, because of status to like upper version. So I mentioned Lufthansa, so the Senator Lounge over the Business Lounge, or Cathay Pacific, the first over the business one. So we've had even more quiet because some of the lounges, are they really quiet? There's so many people in them.
Some of them are crowded and noisy and not a pleasant experience.
And what would be the most important feature in the lounge? Is it like something you like? Is that the food, or is it the quiet?
I think the food is the thing that is the most memorable, and then the view. I always get disappointed when I come into a lounge and there's no view, or there's a beautiful, like clearly behind the windows or is the tarmac, but it's all, covered. It's tinted to the point of not being able to see through or blocked completely. I'm sure there's a reason, but it's disappointing.
They're probably hiding some stuff that, like it's a horrible kind of rooftop, and they don't want you to see.
Yeah, exactly.
But I agree. Yeah, the view for me is probably that I would enjoy the most.
Yeah.
Actually, the United Lounge at T8, it's not like, I mean, there's a few planes, but you can see outside, so it's nice. I like having a view.
Oh, me too.
The reason I mentioned that is because one of our listeners, very, very, very long-term listener, I think she's also been listening to our past catalog a few times.
Oh,
I think, yeah, because she did, like, we did a layover roulette. I think she sent me a message like 6-8 months ago. It says, okay, I've listened to everything and I don't know what to listen to anymore. Can you give me a number? And I said 33. She said, okay, I'm going to listen to layovers 33. I was like, what? Okay. So anyway, Avi Alexandra has started her own podcast with a co-host called David. The name of the podcast is Sky Lounge Podcast. So Sky Lounge Podcast, if you want to find it on your apps. I found it myself on Apple Podcast. They had released one episode. I just saw this morning they released the second one, which I haven't had the chance to listen to. And the more the merrier. I love having more podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she said they talk about lounges. They have a guest. Unlike us, they actually have proper guests. I think that's their plan. And she says that the most important for her is the view. And we fully, like you just realized, Avi Alexandra, that we also concur. The view is the most important. And she says that one of her favorite, if I remember correctly, I think she mentions the Swiss lounge at the gates E at Zurich. And that's probably our favorite because you not only have the views that are freaking amazing, but also you have a terrace. You can go out and see and hear a plane and smell the jet fuel, and it's probably one of the best for the views. Yeah, and because I don't really eat in lounges. Coming back to food, I prefer eating in a plane to test what they have actually tried to do without an open flame kitchen. But besides, the exception for me would be the noodle at Cathay Pacific. I always make it a point, right? I mean, it's just or a pain au chocolat in Air France lounge in Paris. I would always take a pain au chocolat because they're actually the best pain au chocolat. They're not the best pain au chocolat overall, but the best pain au chocolat you can find in a lounge in the world because you're in France.
One would hope.
But yeah, so anyway, they talk about that at length. It's a cool podcast. You guys should give it a go. And congrats for having started a new podcast.
Yeah.
I think we talked. I think in 2018, I must have told her you should be a guest one of these days. I think she got tired of us never inviting her and said, "I'm going to do my own."
She started her own. Yeah, you know what? Good choice.
I would say the other thing I love in lounges. I forgot to say. There's many things. The main thing is I don't find useful a spa. I don't really care. A gym. I'm never going to use it. A business center. They're always empty. I kind of like having direct access, boarding access.
Yes.
I mean, it's rare.
It is rare, but it's nice, yeah.
Emirates does that. ANA does that in Japan. Some other lounges, JAL as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's nice. It is
nice. It is nice.
It's nice to have because it's not absolutely mandatory, but it's kind of cool. Yeah. It's like you're a baller when you have your own kind of jet bridge. Anyway. And finally, before we go to because we're still talking about lounges, we had another podcast called the Non-Rev Lounge Podcast, which I follow as well, that sent us a message that it was fun hearing about your experience club hopping, and that's you, Alex, because you were doing all the lounges with Megan last time. And they say a few episodes back, Tyler talked about going to the Qantas first class lounge in LAX, then stopping by his own airline's lounge before boarding and it's feeling like a bus station afterwards. Yeah, because Qantas actually in LAX is pretty good. So it's true that's sometimes like what you experience at T3. Sometimes when you go to a great lounge and they say, I'm going to try another one, and it's really disappointing. It feels like a bus stop. Yeah. I've done that. I don't think I've talked about it. I've done that in airports, that I don't go often. So when I went to Islamabad, for instance, I said, I have access to 4 lounges. I'm going to do the 4 of them in the next hour and a half just to be able to say that I've been. And I made the mistake because it was pretty random to the first one was the best one. And then I was like, what is this?
But you're always wondering, is the other one going to be even better?
Yeah, exactly. the grass is always green on the other side of the fence. So perfect segue. your trip to the US, did you do, that was a long time ago now, 4, 5, 6 weeks, I don't know. Did you do some lounge hopping this time or not? Would you fly with?
I did. Yeah. So I flew out to New York for a speech and to film our Brooklyn episode, which you so kindly mentioned earlier. I spent a staggering amount of time looking at my flights.
I remember because you were sharing with me all the options. You even talked to Ed Parsons on Twitter, like, what would you do if I were to do that? What do you think about this product? There's a product. Which shows that, for once you were totally free and said, maybe I'm not going to do my usual BA.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it was. I did not feel in any way duty bound to BA. I lost my gold status last month, and I feel nothing about it. I'm waiting for a point where I try and do something just out of habit that I then I can't, and I go, okay, that's a little bit disappointing, or whatever. But I haven't had that yet. And you're right. I looked at, do I try the Singapore Airlines Frankfurt New York route? Because I had a budget to play with, or do I try the Emirates Milan New York or whatever? And I opted for, in the end, JetBlue.
Nice.
Mint. Sweet. From Gatwick, because how great is it that I can do it from Gatwick, which is so much closer to where I live than Heathrow. And as we have said in no uncertain terms lately, it's just a better airport at this point.
Yeah.
It just works.
Now, yes.
Really, really well. It went through a really difficult period during and post COVID, and now it's not polished in any way, but functionally it's just it's great. So that was I mixed it up, and I'll come to the return flight later, but
go ahead.
JetBlue was one way. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't anywhere near like the big dogs across the Atlantic.
It's very expensive right now as well.
Yeah, going across the Atlantic is extraordinary, which is crazy because I don't think there has been more frequency, if not capacity, across the Atlantic at the moment.
Yeah.
Than what we've experienced.
It feels that there's a flight every 30 seconds.
I think it was, and as American BA moved their JV closer and closer, Virgin and Delta, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's we're seeing the quote unquote benefits of a duopoly, which essentially is what it is. Anyway, I booked it, and I fly out of Gatwick North Terminal, and it's interesting, like the JetBlue check-in desk, because you have to do document verification whether you're hand luggage only or not. Tucked in a corner of the North Terminal, and they have multiple flights a day, so they have Boston and New York out of Gatwick, and I think there's maybe 2 to New York a day. I can't remember, but it was empty.
Because you remember I told you when I was flying Emirates in February, next to me were sat 3 JetBlue, and I was saying how cool it is that compared to when I flew them now a year and a half ago, now there's actually multiple routes.
Yeah, there are multiple routes, multiple frequencies, and I'd looked at Heathrow, but it just the timings didn't work out. It was cheaper to go to Gatwick, and Gatwick's easier for me anyway. So, but when I got to check-in, there was nobody there. There was no other passenger waiting. I wasn't particularly early because it was, I think, a noon departure, and I had to drop my kids off at school and then get out there. So it wasn't like I had arrived particularly early to enjoy the experience or whatever. But a very quick document check. You get premium or fast track security as part of a JetBlue. And I should
sorry to interrupt. The doc check is because I think for a few more weeks now, there's still COVID checks to enter the US.
Yeah.
And then it stops. I think it stops in May.
But I think you've always had to do passport checks and visa checks going to the US out of the UK.
You're right, maybe. Yeah.
But you're right. You had to do one of the COVID declarations saying, I don't have COVID. And you could do it online beforehand, and they just double check it's on their system and all of that. And JetBlue were really, really good about, to the point of almost being annoying, of emailing you and texting you and saying,
I know,
please make sure you do this.
Yeah, I remember even to 2021, I think they sent me like 20,000 email and texts. Sign this, remember, do this and do that and be prepared. It's better to be prepared. Okay.
And I think it's because they don't, I don't know if they get fined or anything like that, but I think it's also so that there's no delays at check-in. Yeah, because the woman that arrived after me, I could hear that she had already run into some problems and was looking for her. So it was just easier to do that. And I should say that I booked Mint, which is their, well, it's a business class product. But as you mentioned on your trip report, there's 2 seats at the front of the airplane. The suites, the Mint suites.
Nice.
And then so that is an additional fee, and then not an insignificant fee on top of what you've already paid to be in the.
I think back then I paid for that 200 or 250. I don't remember. Something like that. And I think I'm talking in pounds. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I booked mine in dollars, so it was pretty much the same. But there was no way I was not going to do it.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And that's borderline a first class.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
Right? Okay.
There's only 2 seats.
I'm sorry, I'm preempting what you're going to say. So
No. It's true. It's true. And the Mint cabin is on A321 LR, and there's a lot of these Mint seats, and they are by themselves fantastic business class product, especially when you're thinking, hey, I'm on an A321.
Yeah.
But I did that, and I would have got the fast track anyway. Security was really quiet. Security Gatwick is so good. It's so good.
Yes. It's a pleasure.
You have the sort of queues in front of the security belt, which you see in many airports.
Yes.
So you've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, and they have someone saying, okay, you go to 1, you go to. The only issue I have with those is that if you're at the spot closest to the X-ray machine, trying to get your tray onto the belt is actually quite difficult.
I agree.
And so now they have somebody on the other side of the belt holding the trays back so you can, otherwise you'll be there all day. But other than that, it's so good. And so far, and it's funny because I have, as some of you may have seen on the, on AirAsia, I have a Steam Deck, which is this handheld gaming device from Valve, which I love. And I don't always immediately take it out of my bag. I always take out my laptop and my iPad because that's the things that they always say. And I didn't take it out. And the security guy stopped me and he's like, you got any more electronics in there? And I pulled it out. And he's like, I knew that's what that was. That's a Steam Deck, huh? And I was like, yes. And he's like, what do you think about it? We sat there and had like because the whole airport was empty. So we had 2 or 3 minute conversation about it. And it was just.
Oh, that's cool.
It was just, a nice human moment in a very mechanical process.
Yes, I agree.
And
they're always nice. I always found them. Yeah, I agree.
Gatwick, so, and you're through in the meandering duty-free corridor that all airports have now that they force you to go through. And that's fine. And you don't have lounge access on a JetBlue ticket yet. And I think that's the case in every airport that they fly to outside of the US.
Yeah, but I think it's there. I mean, maybe I'm preempting what you're going to say later, but at their T5, there's no lounge. So I think almost kind of part of their philosophy. Maybe I haven't flown them to, let's say the Caribbean or wherever they fly in Mexico, whatever. So I don't know what they do in other overseas, destinations, but it feels to me that it's one of their quirks that they don't,
And it was, that's fine. I was able to get into lounges with my Priority Pass or my Amex. And it's funny because you and I were having this conversation real time. And I went up to the, what are they called? Plaza Premium.
Yes.
Lounge in the North Terminal.
Yes.
And I go up there and they're very friendly and let me in. I think I can't remember what I used to get in there, but I got in there and it felt, it's got these beautiful windows, like looking, I guess it would be southwest. Yeah. Corner.
You just mentioned Southwest talking about JetBlue.
Oh, I got to get some hate mail for that. Beautiful views and the lounge is kind of in a corner. So you have a lot of big open space. But it was like, it felt like you were in a temporary space. Like everything felt temporary. The tables, the setup.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned. Now I remember what you're going to say.
The way the furniture was arranged and all of that. And it was loud AF. It was so loud. And people weren't being noisy. It's just because there was no carpet.
Lots of echo.
There was, yeah, and it just carried the sound. And it felt kind of dingy, to be honest with you.
You're describing my office right now. You don't see it because the angle I put the camera is on purpose, so you don't see all the mess around me.
When I was looking at the lounges before I went, I was looking at the pictures of this lounge they have on the websites, and I was like, wow, it looks great and really modern. And it just did not reflect that going in there. And I parked myself in the corner. And
by the way, you just describe every other YouTube videos. It just does describe because every YouTube videos, you have a super slick setup. You're like, wow, these guys are. And then if you were ever to do a tour, it'll be a mess around you.
That's kind of what this situation in my office is permanently.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's and I.
So it was echoey and it felt like it felt temporary.
It felt kind of
unfinished.
Just shabby, not very tidy, and the bathrooms were disgusting. And but that is what finally gave it, because I spent the whole time going, I've never been in here before. I know that, but I feel like I've been here before. Uh-huh. And it was the bathrooms. I was like, I know that this is the old Virgin Lounge, because the Virgin had this weird aesthetic across the lounges in London, and in the bathrooms it was they hadn't changed it at all, and it was the old North Terminal Lounge. And during COVID, they quietly sold it. I think all of the lounges at Gatwick.
Yeah, no, I think even more. I think they. Don't quote me on this, but I think they kind of let go of most even of the management of their lounges, besides Clubhouse Heathrow and perhaps the one in New York. But that's it. I think they let go. So some of their lounges are still branded Virgin, but they're not managed by them anymore. That's what I heard. And it could actually even be that it's Plaza Premium that does that for them.
I think it is. I think that was the arrangement, and which is strange because most Plaza Premium lounges I've been in have been very good for third-party lounges, but it was terrible. It was really bad. And so I left early, and the other lounge that was available to me was the number one lounge.
Yeah.
Which I've been in many times and is great. It's fine. It's a very nice lounge, and the number one lounges generally are. But I decided just to go out into the terminal and have a wander around and just stretch my legs before departure. And of course, the Flighty app told me way before anybody else what the gate was. I think even actually before I got to the airport. And it was in that's the strange thing about Gatwick is there's these little pockets and corridors and piers that have been bolted on throughout its existence. And the gate that we were at was exactly one of those. It was in this little cubby at the sort of back end of I guess it would be the east side of the airport. And it was, I feel bad for JetBlue because it's not a nice or comfortable place at all. And there was a lot of, because it's an American flight, there was a lot of additional security screening for people. But there was priority boarding for anybody in Mint and anybody in, I think it's Mosaic is their
program.
Frequent flyer program.
Well, I'm confused because I just received the email. So that was one of my mistakes. I should have charged my miles to Emirates.
Which is what I did.
Yeah, which I didn't. So I opened a Mosaic account, which is also called TrueBlue. So I forgot.
It's TrueBlue and then Mosaic is like...
Because I just received emails this week that they're changing the program. Probably is a way to say that they're going revenue-based without saying it. I didn't read because, again, I have like these few miles. I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I'm going to New York in November, so I might use them, even though for the moment the prices they look horrendous anyway for everything. So I might use just miles on BEY just to soften the blow.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know if that's the thing. Basically, don't know if it's called Mosaic or TrueBlue, but I know both names are being used. So one is the program and the other one is the tier.
I think. Tiers. Yeah, it's a confusing nomenclature, but maybe, emerald and ruby and sapphire, whatever. That's just as confusing, but we're familiar with it, so we know the implications.
100%.
So boarding was very easy, and I was hand luggage only. And then you step on board, and you immediately realize. I mean, and again, I've flown JetBlue many, many times, and I've flown in Mint quite a few times. But I had this sort of hazy idea based on what you had described, and looking at a few pictures. But I didn't want to completely analyze what I was going into. I like to be surprised and discover. But as soon as I stepped on board, I was like, this is gonna be different, and it's gonna be amazing, because you look down and it's a beautiful long cabin. The mood lighting's on,
perfect,
brand new airplane, and JetBlue product anyway is outstanding. So even if you're in economy, you have free blazing fast Wi-Fi. You've got really good IFE. You've got the I can't remember what they call it, but basically somewhere where you can go and help yourself to water and snacks and stuff like that. But the space, I was in one, I guess it would be F or K, or must have been K, whatever it is. You're in 1A or 1K.
You know A and you know on the other one. Yeah, exactly. I don't remember. I didn't do twice. I think I did both. 1A on the way. Was it F or K?
I can't remember what it is.
Well, anyway, the other side.
The other side. Yeah, exactly. And it's this huge space, absolutely huge. And it has the seat, which is at a sort of, I don't know if you call it a 45-degree angle facing inside. So your shoulder is slightly to away from the window, but you have this sort of banquette next to you, this sofa.
Exactly. Yeah.
Next to you, which is not part of the bed. The seat just kind of folds down into the bed, and your feet go under the TV. This isn't a bit completely. And the cabin crew were telling me, sometimes people you can come and have a seat, because they have their own tray table as well. Anybody sitting on this banquette, so you can have a meal together. Virgin used to do that in upper class, where you could.
I would say I've seen this type of idea. I mean, we've seen it like in the past 6-7 years. I know there was COVID in the middle, but when the idea, and you see on the PR pictures like somebody else sitting with you, and never happens. However, for 321, where if you were with Megan, you couldn't sit with her because it's one sit on. If you were both on, of course, in business class. There's one seat on every side. There's no double seat. There's no way. So in that sense, maybe you would have used that banquette and actually had lunch with her. Because otherwise you cannot. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
And I remember when BA released the yin and yang business class seats that we relentlessly poop on. They have a footrest, and they had to put a sign on there saying, "Don't sit on this," because people assumed that because it was the kind of business class seat trend du jour, that you could do it. And that absolutely does not support even a dainty little thing like my wife, let alone someone like me. So they had to put a sign on there to do it. But it was this, I mean, the differentiator on the JetBlue Mint Suite, though, was it would not feel cramped or claustrophobic.
Yes.
To have another person in there.
Correct.
It's so big, and like I said, you have this. They have their own tray, which comes out of a separate section to enjoy the meal with. But I of course was like a kid in a candy store. I was the first person to board, and I was taking pictures and videos. And then you sit down, and you have this huge screen in front of you.
Right.
I think they say it's the biggest business class screen across the Atlantic.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well. I think. They were saying that in 2021 when I took them, and one of the first flights to do that. I don't know if it's still the case, but probably it is
huge,
actually. And it is,
and it's on a hinge, so it comes out. And
yeah,
when I sat down, it said, "Hi, Ian," which is my legal first name, which is what I would have booked with, and I was like, "That's nice,
that's cool." Yeah, I remember that. Hi, Paul. I'm like, how do they already know me? but that's cool.
And it's underneath it. It says in brackets, "Is this you?" And you confirm it's you. And so if it's not, you can put in your frequent flyer number and everything like that. And I was like, that's a nice touch. And of course, the first thing I want to do is flick through it. The interface is beautiful and snappy and quick. But the thing that grabbed my eye immediately was there was a food option, and I thought, oh, it's just going to be the generic menu. We serve things like. Maybe you get no. You press the button and it says this flight has 2 meals. I was like, okay, what's going on here? It says main meal and pre-arrival, and then there's a big orange button that says start order. And I was like, oh, what? And you compose your meals on the touchscreen of all of these available options because they do a small plate service.
Yes,
and it was. I think maybe there was 8 or 9 options, and you pick 3 plates and then a sweet or an after dinner, and then you have the smaller meal, which was still substantial after the sort of maybe 90 minutes before landing in JFK. Beautiful, bright pictures of the meal and descriptions and calorie counts and allergies and all of that. I was so impressed, and I spent way too long futzing with that. It was. I know,
I get it because
great.
I was doing the same. I was trying every single thing. I was like, this is so unusual because I always associated going to the US with a good experience. It's not like a good BA or a good AA is good.
Yeah.
Or I've done Delta, I've done United to the US. But this is special.
Yeah, special
this
is the
really
right word.
different. It's joyful.
It was joyful and setting us. I mean, the physical seat is great. The suite has a door. There's storage everywhere. There's 2 international outlets, so you can plug in a European, American, or UK plug into it. One right over your shoulder, one a little bit further away. USB everywhere. They have a wireless charging mat. They had very good noise canceling headphones, and lots, like I said, lots of storage places to hang up your coat, and a door that you have the suite door, which they come and close for you a little bit later. Lovely little touches like a light, a proper lamp affixed to the wall.
Which you can change also, I think, colors.
And dimness, yep.
Dimness, yes.
And just lots of that everywhere. It is an off-the-shelf physical product, but it's been so customized to this space.
That's the point at the end, I think.
It feels like nothing else in the air. And the amenity kit, there was like 4 or 5 different amenity kits. There was a sleep set, which had earplugs, toothbrush, eye mask, and then there was the other.
Were they stealing these kind of pouches of papery kind of pouches, green and minty, obviously. Yeah,
they had the paper, the gray ones, and that had your flight socks and lots of kind of like gels and lip balms and moisturizers and things like that. And then there was another one which had, I think it was a sample from some, nutraceuticals company with other bits and pieces of it. But there was like all this like accoutrement to go with the service. The experience, the physical product the seat was incredibly comfortable. They give you pajamas. I hadn't had pajamas on an airline in years, but I didn't use them. I brought them home, but because it was a day flight. And the IFE, like we said, lots of really good streaming content. So it's all stored TV, movies. The games were really, really good. I never really play them because I have my own stuff with me. But then for me, the live TV, there were 4 or 5 channels of live TV, maybe even more than that. I forgot, and I know Emirates have this, and a few of the Middle Eastern airlines have it. Mm-hmm. I had forgotten how much I enjoyed it. And I was sitting up there watching the World Baseball Classic, which was going on.
Yes.
Having my pre-flight, champagne and warm nuts and all of that, just going, this is the life. This is great. You know?
Yes.
Just really enjoying it.
100%.
And the cabin crew were, I'd like to say typically American, and I think everybody knows what that means in the context of cabin crew. They were friendly, vivacious, and interested, but also chatty in the galleys and with the ground crew and all of that. It sounds like the JetBlue team in London is very tight knit.
Feels like it, yeah.
And they were talking to each other and saying, "Oh, this is my last flight because I'm going over to help open Paris next week, and I'll be gone for 6 weeks."
Yeah, I was about to say the opening Paris. They also promised they don't have slots, but they announced that they will opening Amsterdam.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know.
great.
They don't have slots. I mean, Amsterdam is a clusterfuck right now, but they will. So they're expanding in Europe, which is very, very cool.
It is great, and I would just say, guys, slowly. Don't Norwegian this, please, because we'd like to see.
Yes.
This product is so good.
I think what you just the term you just mentioned, tighten it, is also probably because the type of long haul operations is not the same as what they do. Not that they do, what they do at Transcon is 5 hours, right? But
Yeah.
requires the economics of flying to airport like Heathrow, which are very expensive for landing fees or etc. You cannot be delayed. You cannot. It's another. Which that's why it's been so hard for so many airlines to do long haul, low cost.
Yeah.
Not that JetBlue is low cost, right? It's not what I'm saying, but it's a difference. So I think they have to be tightened. And I really, you know what? I would love, because if someday for some reason JetBlue becomes too expensive from London, I'd happily fly to Amsterdam and Paris and fly.
Yeah. Oh, I would too. It was such a great experience. The food was exquisite. Like I said, you order these small plates and they bring them to you on a tray, but immaculately presented, absolutely delicious. I think I had burrata, cacio e pepe pasta, and roasted chicken. Those are 3 separate dishes, and then you could have either, I think, shrimp curry or a salad was the other ones, and then you have your sweet. So I think there was gelato or cheese or other things, and it was really flipping delicious food. And like I said briefly, everybody on the flight gets free Wi-Fi, and it was really fast, totally functional Wi-Fi. It didn't cut out. It wasn't frustrating. And it's just a little thing like that, which is actually like, what a difference, what a differentiator. And flying on these other ones, you're going to pay $25 for 200 megabytes of data.
Yeah.
And it's going to take you 45 minutes because Panasonic sucks. So
I think it's both the benefit of having very new aircraft,
yes,
but also simply the philosophy of the airline. And probably being, the challenger. So you're like, I want Alex and Paul to keep coming because it's difficult. We're like, big boats in a way because of we mentioned that because of our status, our habits. Should we go to another airline to try something? And yeah, but I have my status or my miles, and suddenly, so being the challenger, that's one of the things you have to do, to say, look, you have to wow Alex and Paul and obviously others here.
I mean, I know they do it in the U.S. as well, which is much easier to do when you're over a fixed massive land. Over the Atlantic is much harder, but I just liked the feel of it. The food was great. The cabin crew kept saying, are you hungry? Do you want anything? Come on, just have a packet, have a biscuit or something. This is ridiculous. You haven't eaten in 25 minutes. They wanted to engage. And when I went up to the galley to have a quick chat, they couldn't have been more accommodating and friendly. And I was just very, very impressed by the entire experience. It's a long, quite boring flight otherwise, because it's a daytime flight.
Yeah, day.
The long way. You're getting kind of tired. And it did dawn on me, once I'd experienced and played with every button and lever and made this, and just explored the entire airplane and sampled all the snacks and played with everything on the IFE. and sat there and thought, the joy, the pure unbridled joy that I used to experience with air travel hasn't fully returned yet. It's still, even as I sat in this throne in my own room in a beautiful airplane, there was something still like, I kept looking at my watch going, I want to be there now, as opposed to in the past when you're on a 12-hour Cathay business flight going, I never want this to end.
Yes.
And now I just...
Maybe it's age as well. I don't know.
I think fatigue, generally.
Yeah, fatigue. Maybe because we've flown so much. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know what it is. I haven't put my hand on it. It still hasn't returned, but...
Well, maybe it will return. I don't know. For me, and I know I'm talking about an experience now that is an hour, a year and a half back, is that... And we discussed about that with Ed on our first episode of the year. Was it the last of last year? It doesn't matter. What made me happy with that flight is that I dread. I mean, there's everything that you mentioned made me happy. From the IFE, the comfort, the crew, the food. I mentioned that if you guys want to listen because you love listening back to our catalog, you can listen to me talking about it in the past, in November 2021. So the episode around there. But the point is, I want to make today is I'm dreading having to fly narrow bodies for long haul.
Yeah.
And this one, the way they created the seat, it's still a narrow body. Yeah, it's only one seat on each side of the aisle. However, I didn't really feel like I was in a narrow body because the seat is so, I'm like, this is better than Emirates. And I'm like, what the hell? So if that's the future, and if I'm lucky enough and you're lucky enough and all of you guys are lucky enough to fly from time to time in the front of the cabin, I'm okay. I still prefer wide bodies, but I'll be okay to fly narrow bodies for long haul or at least medium to long haul.
I think even the experience in economy, at least from the UK to New York and back, I'm begging JetBlue to remain competitive on price because you will get all of my business. You will get all of my business in economy. Right. No questions asked.
Told you. Yeah, man. Exactly. That's what I didn't go back to the US since basically November 2021, right? So I didn't have it. Did I? No, I forgot. No, I did not. I went on the other side. I went to Middle East, Asia, Pakistan. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, this is the first price I'm going to check is JetBlue before anything else.
I want them to please remain competitive. I know it's difficult, but it's such a great product that the flights were on time. It was interesting, actually, as we got to top of descent, the captain came on and said, we are in for a wild ride into New York. So I'm going to turn the seatbelt signs on now. And when a captain or pilot says we're in for a wild ride, that you're in for a wild ride because they so often downplay because I don't want people to freak out. And it was particularly windy. And the long meandering approach into JFK, you're going slow and you're pretty low. Yeah, it's pretty rocky, but it was good fun. And you land into their terminal at JFK, and the immigration it is what it is. It took about 45 minutes, even as an American, and you're out. But here's the thing. So, in summary, wow, bravo JetBlue. And I know I paid for the best seat in the house, but it was worth every penny and it was exemplary. I could not find fault in any of it. So well done. Very well done. I look forward to experiencing it again.
I'm so happy that you've done it. And I'm also very happy that we both agree because for me, it was almost a revelation. I was like, holy wow.
And I think the experience
and it felt so fresh. And I haven't flown JetBlue like you have in the US, as of course, because I don't travel as much in the US, especially domestically within the US. I felt like I can still be wild after traveling in all crazy, from the new Emirates first class seats and the new Cathay first class. And I'm like, this is freaking amazing. And this is an American airline. And when I say that, please, all our US friends, it's not because I'm dissing you, it's that because we're not used to having the splashiest, the worst. It's not about comfort. It's like, if you look, I've flown business first in AA, Delta, United. They're good, but they're not Singapore Airlines. No. They're not Cathay Pacific. They're not Qatar Airways. And for once, I was like, this is close.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy.
It can be done. It can be done, and it can be done well, and it doesn't necessarily need to be on a wide body to be good. And it was lots of little things. Yes, the seat was comfortable, but it was the food. It was the IFE,
the crew, the experience,
lots of little things.
Yes.
So I was very impressed. I had a speech in Midtown the following morning, so I did that, and Greg was due to fly in the next afternoon. He flew on Norse, which we both had good experiences across the Atlantic in his flight.
They're opening quite a few routes in the US.
They are expanding quickly. It's like they haven't learned. So we'll see what happens.
Touch wood. That's a big table I have in front of me. Touch wood.
Yeah.
And by the way, guys, I'm sorry if you hear noises besides the echo. My computer is on the table, which never happens. I have this huge desktop thing, and for some reason it's working. I was trying to kill whatever was working. I don't know what it's doing, so you might hear some background.
I can't hear it.
You can't, and by the way, Alex, I'm sorry. I freeze from time to time because I'm testing this new webcam, which is a mix between a webcam and a camera. So there's better sensors called the Opal C1.
The picture's beautiful.
Yeah, but it's also in beta, so meaning that sometimes it feels. It's the first time I tried for 2 hours and it's still working. Anyway, sorry guys. Back to Alex in New York.
Well,
so you did your speech, and then you did your episode. Again, I recommend people watching it because Brooklyn. It's as a photographer, I'm not filming. It's a place I love because there's a lot of fabric. And, keep using that term.
No, you're right, and I think that there's always something going on. So it was a very easy episode to put together in that regard. But Greg landed at JFK that afternoon, and from the moment they got to the gate to getting in the Uber, it was 4 hours.
What?
4 hours.
Holy! Was it due to the terminal?
It was. There was.
I mean, he's not American, so it doesn't.
No, everybody was in the same boat, and because you have to go through immigration, irrespective of connections or all of that, you're automatically putting pressure on these systems. But there was like queues to get. They wouldn't let them off the airplane for an hour, because immigration hall was overflowing.
Yeah,
and then there was a queue once they got off the plane. They had to wait in a pen to then be let into immigration, and then it took him 4 hours.
Wow.
And JFK is getting worse and worse and worse for stuff like that. It doesn't matter, the case for global entry, if you are eligible for it, is now very, very strong. And Megan keeps nagging me to do it. And I really should.
I think.
But I'm never in the US long enough to try to make it happen. I think maybe you can do it here. But
can you not do it in the embassy here?
Trying to get into the embassy here is also a nightmare. But
there's post-COVID, we have all these backlogs. I mean, it's the same. I think I don't have a UK passport, but I've heard that also, like trying to renew your UK passport now, you have wait times that are crazy.
So
there's a backlog, and also everybody wants to travel suddenly at the same time. So there's these two things combined.
Poor Greg. It was.
Oh my God.
And he was kind of like, and he's always very British about it and mustn't grumble and find the funny side of it. But it 4 hours. After one of those long daytime transatlantic flights. And he got to the Airbnb like at about 8:00, and he's like, well, I gotta go, because he had promised to meet some friends in Manhattan an hour later. So he had 45 minutes in the Airbnb, and he was
the Airbnb was in Brooklyn.
The Airbnb was in Brooklyn in Bed-Stuy, So he had to then get in an Uber and go to Soho House in Manhattan. And he was like that manic, exhausted, but sure enough, bright and early, he was there the next morning, and we cranked out an episode. But JFK that airport is not fun to go into, and now LaGuardia is so much better. It's
I think that are they not also funding some refurb for JFK? I mean.
They are, but
I thought I read.
It's much more.
It's just the disconnect of that airport. Like every terminal is different, and it's a roll of the dice.
It really is a roll of the dice. And
I've been out of some terminals in like it literally felt like 5 minutes, And other times you see suddenly the queue and like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't.
And then getting into town the Van Wyck is permanently under construction. Anyway, we don't need to get into that,
yeah.
but it was, I felt so bad for
but the payoff is New York.
Payoff is New York.
Whether it's Manhattan or Brooklyn, it's a payoff. It's, So
that bit was good. And coming back, I opted for BA.
Yeah, so before you get there, because it's part of my question. I remember you said that you had booked, but then had to cancel a flight, and I think I'm talking JetBlue, but I'm not sure because I'm talking out of memory. And then you booked a new one, and they gave you some travel credit, and they misquoted you the price
I forgot about that.
Did you gain some money? You maybe don't want to tell it publicly.
Yeah, you're right. I booked my JetBlue flight for a day, and then the event moved my speaking slot forward 24 hours. So I said, okay, well, look, I got to rebook this. I don't know what's going to do for the price. So I canceled my JetBlue flight, and they put it into a travel bank. And I had booked in dollars, forgive me, I'd booked in pounds, but when it canceled it made the credit in dollars. But when I went to rebook using the travel bank,
credit.
It quoted me the fare in dollars, but paid in pounds. So I was like, did I just get away with long story short, it was a display error on between the travel bank system and the JetBlue website. And so the numbers were accurate, but the currency symbol was incorrect. So
there you go. These are the little things, by the way, with this display error. We can feel, and I didn't know that is as recent, but you feel that JetBlue was very much a US-based operation. Yes. And they are to internationalize. For instance, I'm sure it's changed. I couldn't enter my passport number because the weights and my phone number. It could be refused because it was a +44. They just opened this, which is the, for guys who don't know, that's the country code for the UK. When I was trying to enter my phone number, we don't have the same number of digits than a US phone. And if you were trying to put your country code, it says your phone is too long. Yeah. I'm talking a year and a half ago. They probably fixed it, but meaning, that's when you internationalize, you have to suddenly think about little things.
Yeah, exactly. It's in all these little edge case scenarios like the one I just described where it's going to take someone like me going, what happened? And then they'll go in and fix it and it will be fine. But that change in date, it's a good point because that change in date meant that I had to reevaluate my return leg too, which I didn't, which is why I booked on BA because I looked at American. JetBlue was coming back was prohibitively expensive, and you either have economy or mint. There's nothing in between, but BA and AA in premium economy was very reasonable, even one way.
Okay,
which is what I ended up doing, and then the BA flight into Gatwick because that's where my car was, even though I could have done the faff of flying into Heathrow and then taking a bit. You know what? It was right there. And I looked, and it was an old. I had looked at upgrading with miles if I was going to be on a Heathrow flight, because there was an opportunity to almost certainly to get the club suite because they are, I think, on every Heathrow JFK flight.
But not
Gatwick. They're still using the Leisure 777s. But, and I've seen this crop up on Flyer Talk a lot lately, is when I spoke to, because you have to call to do this. It never seems to work on the website to upgrade with miles. So you call them, and they're all perfectly charming people, very, very nice people. But the amount of cash that I would have to pay in taxes and fees on top of the Avios varied so dramatically with every call.
Oh, wow.
Like by hundreds of pounds. And
that makes
it doesn't make any sense. And people were saying on Flyer Talk, as I read through other posts of people having the same issue, saying, hang up and call back until you get a number that you like. And I'm like, well, surely a tax and a fee is a tax and a fee. I never got a number I liked, so I didn't actually end up doing it. It didn't feel worth it to blow 45,000 and maybe like 500 pounds.
Yeah, I know. That's. Remember, we talked about that offline, so guys, it's not on the podcast, but I said that when I was supposed to go to Latin America almost a month ago, early April, which is why I ended up flying. The friend I was meeting there was taking time there between two jobs, says, come, join me. And then I started booking the whole thing, and then he had to go some surgery. It's fine, so nothing, but it was like sudden. And he said, can you come like 2 weeks later? And it didn't work. So I couldn't because I had, other commitments. But anyway, point is, I was trying back then with that BA clunky thing to try, can I, reward flight or upgrade to have at least premium economy because it would have been like a 12, 13-hour flight, whatever. My goodness, it would never work. And when it worked and when I called, like you said, it's very expensive, the fees on top of. And you're like, do I want to do this? Do I want to spend all those money? Yeah, I get it.
I just, and I knew it was the old product, so I just didn't feel worth it. And my last few trips across the Atlantic in that direction and in premium economy, I was able to get sleep, so it didn't feel worth it. So I made the trek out to T8 now, and I spoke. Was it maybe even in the last episode or a couple of episodes ago?
Yeah, you spoke about the various lounges,
the new lounge, the new BEY lounges, and
was it busy this time?
Yes, it was busy once I found the frickin' thing. Because when Megan and I went, the Uber dropped us off right by coincidence at the correct door where it was a straight shot back to the check-in process that I described in the last time. But this time the guy didn't, and I was just in the middle of quite a chaotic economy check-in area, and I was like, okay, if my memory serves me correctly, it's daytime now, it was dark then. I think it's over there. And I went and I was like, no, that's not it. And I walk around and I say to a member, excuse me, I'm really sorry, but can you tell me where the first class check-in is? Like, oh, it's just back around there by aisle D. I'm like, go back aisle D. I'm like, I don't see it. We're like the whole John Travolta meme gif of like, look at her. I did not see it anywhere. And I'm like, I feel so stupid. Like, how can it be this hard? I go back and ask another person at the front of the terminal, like, where do I go? And they pointed me. And it's really not obvious if you're coming at it from any other angle. But I get to this. There's, like I told you in the last time I described this, there's a set of sliding doors that open and reveal these 4 or 5 desks, like hotel concierge desks. This time, all 4 desks were occupied, and there was a queue of maybe 3 or 4 parties ahead of me.
For each desk?
For in total.
For in total.
2 of the desks were occupied by people having fights, not physical fights, but certainly very tense verbal altercations.
Like you're supposed to let me in.
It was more about baggage fees, I think I could tell, and then misconnect. Somebody had arrived late and missed their flight.
Darn.
But they very sensibly took them over to the side, and somebody else was able to go. And I go straight into my. I think I did have a check bag because I'd brought stuff back from the US.
Were you still gold at that point?
I was still gold at this point, so I was able. This was my last lounge entry with gold because it was the very end of March, and so they were very kind and put me through. I was in premium economy, and I went into the lounge I described before. It was much busier, and one of the things that I notice now is that I think they've messed up the ratio of comfortable seats to restaurant-style seats.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to sit in a restaurant-style seat. I was really tired. We'd worked our butts off on the episode. And it was sort of 6 or 7 o'clock at night. I did not want to sit, but there was no there was no room anywhere. Lots and lots of spaces at the restaurant-style seats. But I thought, you messed it up. And as the evening progressed, and
it's just go on, because I want to I just want to talk about seats, but go on lounge.
I mean, eventually, as the evening went on and some of the flights cleared out, the seats freed up, and it was again like it was when Megan and I were there. It was a little calmer, a little more serene, a bit more space. Mm-hmm. But it took a while.
Yeah, coming back to what I was saying earlier, when we mentioned the new podcast of Alexandra. Sky Lounge. I don't remember if they talk about it, but they talk about lounge. By the way, I don't think they're only going to talk about lounge. They're going to talk about like us, a lot of stuff. But seating for me I was reminded of that when I went to this new Air France lounge in, was it January, February? I can't remember now. That they built for Europe. It's mostly European flights. It's wonderful, and they have all these type of seatings, like you said, bar seatings, restaurant seatings, sofas, kind of chairs, but kind of a little bit comfy, like more like, and that balance is that was quite interesting. I said, okay, these are short flights, so people are not probably going to stay very long, because if you go for a 2-hour flight, you're not going to come 5 hours, unless you call Paul and Alex, you're not going to go 5 hours before to try the lounge. However, when it comes to like longer flights, you have these, this balance is changing. Yeah. For instance, I always have this thing in my head, and that's one thing I'll criticize both Emirates at Dubai and Qatar at Al Mukhan in Doha. They're very comfy seats, but if you want to sleep, it's very hard. So maybe they don't want to cannibalize the potential hotel that it's probably owned by the same group. So of course the airport. So, but you're like, yeah, you should. I don't. The balance is always tough to find, and sometimes I feel like I go and the seats that are only remaining are not comfortable at all.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I don't care about the restaurant because okay, that's me. I never eat. Just give me sofas. But of course, if you put sofas, you have left seating. So probably that's the whole. It must be. It's not. It must. I'm saying all these criticisms mustn't be very easy to strike that good balance economically and as a designer with the space you're allowed to play with. But,
yeah, and I think a lot of people were using the restaurant style seating to work, and I can absolutely understand that that's a better position to be in. And of course, they do this at the table service food as well as the buffet stuff I described in the last time.
That's where the Air France lounge, by the way, again, I'm peeping at this one, but they had like proper, I think it was very well thought out, because if you wanted to work, you had your own spaces, multiple spaces. That because when you're on a sofa, you're kind of too
leaned back, really uncomfortable.
So they found probably a good balance, and he also felt very, very busy simply because tons of flights. I'm not saying it's a perfect balance, but it's a good balance. And I think that's, basically it's a fight, because then you want to have a comfy seat, but the guy who wanted the comfy seat wanted to eat, but the guy who wanted to eat, there's someone else working with a laptop, and then musical chairs. They should play the music in lounges, like in every 5 minutes, everybody kind of moves around.
You have to get up and give somebody else your seat. It's I maintain that it's a good lounge. Yes. And I was, comfortable eventually, and the food was good. I wasn't really particularly hungry, and didn't want to eat on the flight either. So, but it is a good lounge. And then once I wandered out, it's a very stark contrast leaving that lounge and going out into the terminal, because much of T8 is still pretty like low ceilinged, shabby, and we were at the very end, and I can't remember the gate number, but there's this. At the end of one of the piers, there's a section with 2 or 3 gates, and it was very, very crowded with wide body departures and low ceiling, fluorescent lit. Not everybody was a bit cranky because our flight was, surprise, surprise, delayed. And I'll tell you why it was delayed. It was the weirdest goddamn thing. I still haven't gotten to the bottom of it. I was looking on Flight Radar and watching looking at my watch, and I could see the plane left London a little bit late because I got a notification from BA, but it made up pretty much all of the time en route and landed, touched down on time, and then sat on a taxiway for an hour.
Is that a Greg situation with the overflow?
But they weren't even at the gate. And I was trying to listen to liveatc.net and trying to listen. But there was no mention of it, because by the time I'd clocked that something wasn't right, they would have already talked about the issue. And it was just, so we just sat there and I was like, what? Now we really are going to be late. We just sat there and sat there and sat there, and it did this weird taxi around. I don't know what the issue was. I've never been able to ascertain. Eventually it taxied in. And then I told you about this as we're all waiting, standing in this very crowded area. The captain of our flight came out to the gate area and sort of literally kind of dog whistled to get everybody's attention, because there was no working PA, and gave this kind of schoolmastery lecture where he said, literally, when you board, don't faff around. Put your stuff away and sit down and buckle up. Otherwise, we're going to miss our slot. And then said, keep your seatbelts fastened while we're in the air. And then there was this weird smattering of uncomfortable applause. And he got back on the plane and we boarded. And I guess people listened to him because that's what happened. I was like, but what the hell is it? It was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. It wasn't rude. It was just sort of weird and uncomfortable vibe to come. It literally said, don't faff around. I tell my kids when they're getting ready for school, don't faff around. It was so strange, but get on board, and it's an older, very old actually for BA 777-200, and I'm in premium economy. I have the row to myself, which was glorious because all I wanted to do was to sleep. And the very sweet young flight attendant, cabin crew member, said, what can I get you after takeoff? And I said, I don't want anything. I just want to sleep. She's like, sure. Can I bring you a tray? Can I bring you anything? Genuinely, are you sure I can't get you anything? I'm like, no, I just, as soon as you turn off those lights, I'm going to go to sleep. And she said, okay, but if you change your mind, press that button. I'll bring you whatever you need. And I was like, do you know what airline you work for? So as soon as we pushed back and we've done the beautiful circuit and seen New York at night, I put my earplugs into my eye mask and I go to sleep. And halfway, I could see on turbulence forecast this finger of clear air turbulence that went from north to south. Yeah. That was a jet stream, really weirdly thin, because usually there are these 100-mile long width of turbulence advisories because it's not an exact science. And oh boy, did we hit that. We hit it.
Did that wake you up?
Oh, it hit it. Yeah, it woke me up. It was easily the worst turbulence I've experienced in over a decade. The captain came on and said, cabin crew seats immediately. They all stop what they're doing, rush, punch into their seats, and we were all over the place. The engines were surging. I mean, most people were asleep, and it wasn't but there were quite a few people screaming, a lot of shit flying everywhere.
Oh, wow.
But it didn't last very long, maybe 20 minutes.
But sometimes these 20 minutes feel
20
longer.
minutes, and it's tiring.
If you're uncomfortable in these kind of situations, I'm generally fine. I'm no hero, whatever, but thank God I'm generally fine. But if you are not...
And you look at the window and you can see, I get uncomfortable when it's dark and you're in cloud. Yeah. But I looked out the window. It was beautiful, clear night. You could see other planes around. You could see glorious fields of stars. And we were bouncing around, and I thought, I know what's causing this. We're crossing this very strong jet stream. Yeah. It's very narrow. It'll be over in a minute. Sure enough, it was.
There was I don't have it, probably somewhere in I have bookmarks of stuff to talk about and stuff dating back from 6 years ago. So at some point, I need to just declare bankruptcy of my notes. But I read, I think a few, 5 months ago, whatever, I read something about the effects of climate change on the jet stream and how more turbulent the skies are already over the Atlantic and will continue to be, and worsening. I'm not here going to say there's going to be tornadoes in every time you fly, but apparently in the rest of our lifetimes, we should expect a bit more of these kind of turbulences coming. I'm not saying that's what you hit.
No, I think that
always
that's
happened, but they say that it's going to be getting a bit worse over time.
I remember when I used to blog many moons ago, I wrote about an article this was like 10 years ago, that was saying that the Atlantic will get increasingly and perpetually more turbulent because of exactly what you've described. And it's interesting looking at the new generation of airplanes that are actually noticeably better at dampening turbulence because of the way that the flight control systems work and the way that the software, especially on the Dreamliner, you watch the ailerons twitch constantly during turbulence.
Yeah, they compensate.
Amazing.
Like it's a piano. It's crazy.
It's really rather beautiful, and I think that.
But the same, I've had when was it? Was this year? Or maybe late last year, I had like a similar experience in the turbulence, probably not as tough as yours. And I was in a 350, and same, you could see that these things moving, and it's clearly not the pilot because it's like he's not like automatically trying to compensate. He's like it's magic.
I've seen people post on YouTube and Instagram, pilots showing the yoke just twitching. They're not touching it. The thing is just twitching, and I think it's amazing. I do feel very reassured on the 777-200. That thing is a tank, and it feels robust and reassuring. And the engines are they're surging and to maintain as consistent a feel as they can for the passengers. And clear air turbulence feels like going over rough water in a boat. So it is uncomfortable and violent, but there's patterns, right? You feel, unlike turbulence, you feel around thunderstorms, which is unpredictable and surgy and violent, and there's a lot more torsion.
Surgy, that's exactly the term. I'm always like, what? Like I'm on what's the name? An attraction park.
You're not expecting it. It's much more violent and punchy, and even the sound's different. But clear air turbulence, there's something more symmetrical about it in the way that it feels, even though it's not very uncomfortable. So, I went straight back to sleep, and again at top of descent, I'm waking up. The same flight attendant clocks that I'm waking up, dashes over to me and she said, "You slept through breakfast. What can I bring you? Can I bring you a tray, a pastry, anything?" I'm like, "Who are you?" And she brought me a cup of coffee, but she was so attentive and kind and genuine. And I've experienced that on Cathay a few times where I've slept through meal service and they've noticed that I've woken up. They're like, "What do you need? You need to eat. You must eat. You're dangerously thin." I'm like, "I'm not. I'm morbidly obese."
Yeah, but these Cathay Singapore, they're like your grandma or your aunt from like they're chasing you. Have some more milk. I'm like, no, I'm fine. Come on, you're not gonna grow. I'm already an adult. No.
Maybe it's Gatwick crew, and then of course I start thinking about, is this Gatwick crew? Is that whole difference between the two cabin crew bodies? I thought I need to go back and understand how the cabin crews, because do you remember in the 2010s there was two big flight attendant unions in BA.
Correct.
And
yes,
the experience that you got was
they were different. They were different contracts, and they were like, exactly.
And I couldn't remember how that all netted out.
And especially everything exploded. It's not the right term. Everything kind of got mixed up since they laid off people, new contracts, new conditions. But there's always bright spots. And here, I'm not saying that BA is not a bright spot, but there's always like one or two or three, sometimes an entire crew that are just above.
I didn't interact with any of the other crew because I was asleep for 99% of the flight. But if I had been thinking, I would have given her my last golden ticket, which is we get as always gold card, which I could probably figure out and a way to get it to her. But just like saying, just keep doing what you're doing because you are you're good and you're better than everybody else you work with, quite frankly. And there was no acknowledgement of my status. I don't even think she knew. I don't think it was anything to do with that. It was just, well, this is my job.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then arriving at Gatwick is easy. Quick taxi times off the plane. My bag was off very quickly, and I was home. So it was a positive, minimalist British Airways experience.
Happens.
It does.
No, honestly, it's the one of our listeners I mentioned quite a lot. Mileage Runner, Steve Tao. I don't have the notes in front of me from him, but he had said when we released our previous episode, even the one before, when you mentioned actually New York and JFK T8, which looking at the time might be actually the title of this episode, JFK T8. He said he was thanking you for the review and was looking forward to try these new lounges and being so happy that he didn't have to do the transit between T7 and T8, which was always a nightmare at JFK with like no staff and only one security line. But he added that most of his recent BA experiences had been excellent. So maybe it's just a roll of the dice and you get, but he was happy with them. And he's flown, if you just look him up, he's flown like great airlines around the world. So it's not like, his standards are pretty high. So I'm not here saying it's a trend. I'm saying I hope every airline you have very bright spots.
I hope they turn the corner.
Look, I didn't tell you when I saw you because I wanted to have your reaction for posterity on this podcast. I'm a bit, how to say that? I'm a bit uncomfortable now to criticize BA because, and I'm sorry, Alex, because I don't understand why they did that to you. Although I didn't have the right amount of points, they renewed me for gold another year.
You know what? They renewed Megan for bronze for another year. What the hell they listened to this and go, that son of a bitch, he does not stop talking trash about us. So blacklisted. That's great though.
First of all, I went on my account and so I get, the email. Oh, we're very glad to thank you for your custom, which by the way, most of the points of my year actually ends right now, April to April. Most of the flights were with Qatar Airways. Good for me. So I've gained the points on Avios with that. But I looked at the numbers and I was like, during COVID, there was all these different new thresholds. There was a threshold in 2020, they changed 2021, and then they changed the last one is basically in, I think it was, this is what I said late last year. And we said, I'm not going to be able to renew because I knew counting, I'm like, they're going back to their normal threshold systems in January, so this January. And I was like, no way, because even if I were to do a mileage run, I would not hit that 1,000. I remember. The point doesn't matter. Most people don't care anyway. I was not that far, but I was not that close either. So basically, if they had kept the very low standards of 2020, I would have hit the threshold, but not the ones from 2022, nor obviously the ones from this year. And I went on Twitter and I looked, I said, is there anyone talking about this in Flight Tracker? There's a few people. So they've done this, clearly. I'm not neither a mistake like a IT error, but also, or maybe I am, or maybe we all are, but probably close enough that, and I don't know, maybe they said, okay, this guy has been old for X amount of years continuously and has all this. I don't know what or maybe it's a minimum amount of, they have all these lifetime miles thing. Maybe I don't know. It's a bit sad first because I'm like, can I not give that to Alex because he's actually going to enjoy it this year way more than I do because I'm not going to fly that much long haul a few times, but I'm like, shit, I feel almost guilty because I'm like, now I feel that this other added pressure. Can I renew next year? No freaking way. I'm not going to be. So I'm like, it feels BA, loyalty, head of loyalty. Upgrade my friend Alex to gold because you're using it way more than I do.
When Megan told me that, I was really intrigued, and I went back and I looked because I'd also seen on Flyer Talk a couple of people mention that, and I think I didn't get it for many reasons, but one of them is that when they did the double extension of gold during COVID, I had maxed out both extension. Like I was the person that benefited the most almost to the day. Like if you timelined it out, I was this guy got the most benefit and got the most extensions.
I agree. However, you flew them during the pandemic.
I did.
And I didn't. I haven't flown BA long haul basically since 2019.
Maybe that's why. Maybe they're looking at people like me going, this dude is going to fly us no matter what.
Yeah.
And then people like you who go, he used to fly us and now he doesn't fly us nearly as much.
I was reading something. I think it was concurrent when IAG released their numbers, whatever. I think they were expecting to lose as much as 35% of loyal customers. As in, people that were, I'm talking status. I'm not saying losing as people leaving and flying, trying other stuff, although that could happen. But 30, that's a lot. You're like, okay, there's people, maybe they haven't flown or maybe whatever. But I would, if I were them, and maybe they're not, I'm not here saying they're not smart enough. Maybe they don't have the right IT system to go granular and say, okay, people like an Alex, because I would renew you because like you made the effort to fly with us even though no one was flying, and then you keep making the effort to flying with us
which makes me think it was what I said, which is
I know
if he's flying during COVID, he's going to fly with us anyway.
I agree, but however, it's I agree with what you're saying, but it's bad for loyalty because at the end of the day, I accrued most of my 2022, so my previous year on Qatar Airways. Yes, they have an agreement, but I haven't flown BA Metal. Yeah. I've done 2 short haul. And I'm not here. I'm very happy they renewed me, though. Again, I feel like I'm not going to be really able to use it because I'm not planning to fly a lot of long haul in this year for various reasons. But yeah, anyway, so thank you, BA. Yeah. So now I'm having a hard time wanting to criticize you because well, maybe they heard the podcast.
I will double down on my criticism there.
Yeah, the red lightsaber and the blue lightsaber is going to be us. We have like 10-15 minutes. We're gonna do your next trip in the next podcast in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's a very cool one. I'm still expecting the result on AirAsia, but because I have lots of questions about that one.
Oh, okay.
So really a lot of questions about the trip, about being there, but also, so guys, I'm not going to say where he's been because maybe he wants to make the surprise for AirAsia. So a few more things. Yeah, Delta, since we talked about going over the Atlantic like you did, Delta is coming back to Gatwick after 15 years.
15?
Yeah, they hadn't been to Gatwick for 15 years. So they're coming back. And at Taylor Seiko on, was it Twitter, told me, Paul, that's your escape from Heathrow.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Is that a JFK flight?
I haven't checked. Probably JFK, I would say.
Well, so they've seen JetBlue.
Yeah, and probably also the landing fees at Gatwick are.
I wonder if it's something to do with Virgin. If there's a slot swap there or something.
Maybe as well. You're right, actually, or simply because Gatwick is actually working.
Yeah.
We mentioned Amsterdam. How I said clusterfuck, and it's on purpose. The story is insane. So they're still having the chaos. I mean, we have some, but not what it was last summer. Chaos is still kind of reigning, so they still have a flight cap. They wanted to extend the flight cap to 2024, September 2024. So we're talking about more than a year. And then they announced they want to ban night flights and private jets. It's more for the eco-friendly part of their... And they're abandoning plan for a new runway, which probably they would have built in Belgium at this point.
Yeah.
They're so far and wide away. But they had like airlines suing them. Like I think 5 or 6 airlines have sued Amsterdam. And currently the judge, I think, said, okay, they struck down the cap and the ban of night flights because of a procedural thing. But because of anyway, it seems... I don't know what's going on there.
No.
I don't know. Guys, if you fly from Amsterdam because you live there, or if you fly through, tell us what's your experience been lately, because I haven't been.
No, neither have I. I used to go a lot, but I haven't been in ages.
Yeah, same. It seems like JetBlue wanted to buy Spirit, but apparently they're being blocked by the Justice Department, but I think for, I guess antitrust, to say it is going to be, I guess the advantage of them buying Spirit is that they would actually being able to kind of maybe move the needle against the 4 dominant carriers. So, which ones.
This sounds vaguely familiar. And I think it's just going to be a procedural thing. I think it'll happen eventually.
Yeah, I think the Justice Department, they might be they will reduce the amount of low-cost availability for the public if JetBlue buys Spirit. I know. Anyway, what else did I want to... Yes, something that I'm going to ask you that one of our listeners has asked us since we're in the US. Matthew CT at Matt5678. That was a long time ago. He's moving from the UK to Orange County in the US. He has silver BA status. And he's going to be going to SFO, DFW, Miami, and AAD frequently. What airline do I give my loyalty to? American, Delta, United, Alaska? I have no idea, man.
Not Alaska. I think it would be American or United on those routes.
Yeah, I don't. Guys, if you want to, anyone on you.
Yeah, I would be interested to know.
So add us, if you're on Twitter, at @lay_overs. And also at Matt5678. Maybe because it's been quite a long time he's been asking this. Maybe now he's made a choice. But I wouldn't know what I would do if I were to move to the US. Of course, I would look at the hub. But I don't know.
I think I would. I don't know, actually. Could just keep BA silver status and fly American a lot. But I would do American, I think.
Yeah, maybe. The price of flights, you mentioned that at the very top of the show. I was looking for some numbers and I found they say, so US going from the UK, going from Europe to the US in economy is 40% more expensive than it was in 2019.
Jeez.
Wow. US domestic overall is 25% more expensive than 2019. On average in Europe, it's 20% higher than 2019. And so that beats inflation, by the way, guys. People are going to say, oh. But the craziest one is if you fly, I think, to Asia, it's more than 50% higher than 2019.
I've seen...
It's crazy, man.
Why? Why is this?
I don't know. I think probably capacity, and they opened more late, and everybody... We talked about this when we met the other week. Everybody wants to fly at the same time as well. Like Japan right now, it's crazy. It's funny because a lot of friends of mine who live there tell me, there's so many people. But actually, if you look at the numbers, there's less people in 2019, for instance. So it's still not there. However, of course, if you've lived in a country that had no tourists for 3 years, suddenly any amount will feel like a lot of people. But it's just, I think a lot of people are just, there's a backlog. A lot of people do like these not once in a lifetime, that's the point. Once every 2-3 years, a big trip.
Yeah.
Let's say Japan could be it, or going to the US, or going to, whichever, Australia, right? But the thing is, suddenly for 3 years, 2 years at least, no one has been able to do that. And then I think everybody wants to do them at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's the thing, what's happening. And he feels that he pushes the prices up, and there was understaffing, and I don't know. What's his name? Fernandez from AirAsia, the founder of AirAsia, which quite the smart guy. He says that these airfares are not higher than expected, but what should have been the prices all along, because it was too much a cutthroat business. Like, we're doing pricing that
it's not sustainable.
The airline industry was doing pricing that made no sense, and for him, this price is now here to stay. That's his take.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, of course. I'm just saying. Because
that's kind of disappointing, but I can understand.
I think there will be some more competition. I think we can still look at some point during 2024, we'll have better pricing for Asia, for instance.
I mean, I think a lot of that depends on Russia being able to fly Russia, because that's adding 20% to flight times.
I still don't know if I'm going to go to Japan this year, because I don't know. Because of the pricing and even the availability on reward flights. I don't know if you ever try on BA. There's basically nothing until it reopens basically in January 2024, because there's so many people, and I get it.
Yeah, of course. When you can't go somewhere, then you suddenly can. You just want to go immediately.
Yeah, and the load. That's the thing, is that the prices are higher, but the load factors are not Still comparable. We're still not at 2019. It feels like everybody and their grandmother is flying, but it's still. All my friends are, going all over the place. It feels like we're 2019. Yeah. However, if you look at the numbers IATA provides, we're still not there. I think there's a few bright spots, a few countries. I think Greece, and I'm not saying that because I'm Greek as well. Greece is tracking 120%.
Wow!
So it's above what it was in 2019. There's but again, lots of people maybe want to escape, especially with this winter that's dragging along here. And you know what is a good sign that things are going back to normal? EVA Air is reintroducing the Hello Kitty airplane.
Yes, finally.
And ANA is committing to keep flying the Star Wars. I think they renewed the contract or something, Star Wars planes. So
I'm so happy I got to fly on one of those.
Oh yeah, I haven't actually. Bastard. You're very, very lucky. Japan, have you seen I know it's not exactly aviation related. The price of since we're talking about increased prices, the price of the GR rail.
Yes.
77% higher in one go. So basically it's doubling the price of your, for those who don't know, you can buy, as a tourist, basically you can buy a pass that allows you to use a lot of the Japan rail system across Japan for a set fixed price. And it's doubling.
Yeah, although our friend Shin did point out that the new pass will give you access to many more Shinkansen services, which are
the Nozomi, the one that you were not. So I never use I never use the GR pass. I would always pay myself. I know I feel some baller right now, but because I wanted to use a Nozomi because it's much faster to Kyoto and go on. And point is. Because let's not drag on this. Point is, a lot of people are saying, they're trying to shut us down. Why are they killing tourism? I've looked into it because I was curious. The prices of that GR rail pass haven't increased since 1981.
Yeah.
Besides tax fees. I'm like, come on. At some
point,
it
represents very good value.
Yeah, still, I still think so. Yeah, I still think so. And the Saint S85 Martin Hammer, he was listening to us. The last episode he was on a long layover at Narita, and he says, and he's right, that every episode we talk about Japan. So here you go, Martin. We're talking once more about Japan, he was happy that we were talking about Japan whilst he was there. However, Martin, a long layover on where were you? Were you going to Japan, or were you probably going to Asia or something? To from the US? Because why would you do a long layover in Narita? That doesn't really happen. Have you done a long layover?
I've never been to Narita. Well, once I've been to Narita, but it was for a long layover. Actually, I was going from from Asia to the US.
There you go. That's usually the case. So, Martin, maybe that's what you were doing. Look. Do I have anything else before we move? Yeah, no, there was something that I wanted to, but now I'm looking at my notes, guys. I'm sorry, this is raw and live. Well, I think we're gonna close on that happy note. Let's do another one maybe in a couple of weeks. So you have 2 other trips you want to explain us?
Yeah.
Tell us about. There's might be travels in May. I know you hinted at one. I'm not going to talk about it because, again, the thing is, when these are travels that he wants to do for Attaché, I'm unsure if he wants to kind of tell it in advance, because then
it doesn't matter.
Why would you? Yeah, I know, but it's still kind of nice to have the surprise. So same for me. I don't know. I might be going to Greece. Might be going to Switzerland. Might be going to France, actually. So I don't know yet. I'm quite happy being home these days.
Yeah, me too.
I have quite lots of flights coming in the second part of the year, like 4 weddings. I don't have the funeral right yet, so thank God.
Oh, good. Yeah.
But so I'm quite happy not to be flying, but probably next month. On that, Alex, anything else you wanted to add before?
No. Thanks for letting me waffle on.
No, that was great.
Go JetBlue.
I'm so happy. Let me put, where is it? Every time I say where is it, because man, you need to get that cough looked at. You're coughing every year. You haven't.
It's frustrating.
Are you still having that? No, you're out of that cold you were having.
Yeah, this is just the remnants.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I was sniffing this morning. No, I was not sniffing coke, guy. I was sniffing my own nose because I went running and it's still cold and I can't freaking believe it. So that's the only reason I'm like, sometimes I see pictures of friends that are like in places like, I don't know, Okinawa or Southeast Asia. I'm like, I should just go now. Enjoy some actual good weather. Right? Why? Anyway, are you not any summery destinations?
No, nothing on the horizon.
What?
Nothing on the horizon.
Oh, well. Guys, why are you listening to us? I don't know. We're not interested. We're not interesting anymore. Bye-bye.
Safe travels, guys.
Happy flying.